Rice and Rick Mears. They were co-rookies. We have Wally Dallenbach's Kuzma that he ran in '71, the Sprite car. We have a Dallara, 97 Dallara in Ganassi colors. We have the Riley Scott, which Richard Childress was tied into, black number 3, that ran in '99 with Raul Boissel. We have everything from midgets to old sprint cars and a lot of Indy cars now.
You got quite a number of Indy cars in your shop. Are they in the process of being restored, or are some of them finishing up for sale?
We are finishing them up. I think on all of them we've done some work because we're a rare place where you could actually drop your tub off, have your tub repaired, or we can rebuild your offie up in the engine room. So we're kind of the one-stop shop around here. But we are selling. We're brokering a lot of cars. And Mike Lashmat and I have combined, and we're pretty knowledgeable about a lot of types of the different cars. So we know a lot of people that we can reach out to broker them. So that's another thing that we're really getting into heavy.
Is there a lot of people looking for these cars?
You'd be amazed. Today I probably had 5 phone calls, and 2 of them were from California.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How did they see your cars?
Actually, through the Vintage Registry and a lot of stuff on Facebook. You know, it's it gets out there. With computers now, we can go farther and faster than we ever did with a newspaper.
Yeah, and cheaper.
Yes.
You can buy a computer for a couple $100. $50 a month, you got internet, and away you go.
I buy them for less from the guy over here, Computer Overdrive.
Upcoming, now first back up, last weekend at the Milwaukee Mile, I was told by you that it was a really good turnout, and Mike said the back gate was very good. So was it
you got to remember we were in Milwaukee. It's June. But the last thing you think when you walk over to the restroom is that you're going to have snowflakes hitting you in the forehead. And we had that. It was cold. It was rainy. But there was a ton of ARCA cars. We had a great turnout for the Vintage Registry. I think there was over 20 cars, some pretty phenomenal ones. And the gate and, the grandstands had a lot of people in it for as bad as the weather was. And I know that I believe he's already confirmed that he's going to do the same show next year. He did so well at it, so it's a plus. It's nice to see Milwaukee gates open.
Did anybody talk to the president of the fair board and say, how about Indy cars? Did it ever cross your mind to bring them back?
I from what I understand, I think the fairground still owes the state money because the facility is beautiful. They just put in new grandstands. They spent a lot of money, and it's a shame that Indy cars are not running there. And I think that's something that you're good at sending emails to a certain person. I think you need to send him one.
Oh, I've sent a few here and there.
I'm sure.
The next event for the Vintage Indy Registry, of course, is going to be at the WTT Gateway Raceway coming up in, August 22nd or something, I think it is.
Yes, and that's pretty fabulous. I mean, the IndyCar race is great. Gateway Racetrack is phenomenal. The lighting, they run it at night. And we'll have probably 30 to 40 vintage cars there also. And Chris Blair does a phenomenal job with that place. I will say that, all the different, there's several different groups that are running the vintage cars. And I know last week at Milwaukee with the Vintage Indy Registry, they've really stepped it up a notch, and people need to keep an eye on that. We had he's getting a lot of different sponsors, a lot of racing sponsors.
Yeah, he is. I was surprised when I asked him.
Yeah, I mean,
wow.
He's getting several, from Bell Helmets, you have
Bubba Burgers.
Yeah, Bubba Burger. You have, I mean, everybody, he's got insurance groups. But he had a really good dinner, acknowledged everybody, had a, close to a 5-star dinner, a banquet. It was really classy, and he stepped it up a bunch. And it's going to grow and grow if you keep promoting it like that. He's doing a fabulous job.
Well, it seems that Vintage is getting, if you get the emails from SVRA, good grief, they've got them flying in the door. They're really really doing well, and I got to assume I haven't talked to Mr. Munshine recently, but the last time I did, he said things were picking up for him. So the whole vintage racing world is coming to life.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. I think all those venues and all the groups are doing very well, and I think several of the participants, travel and work with all the groups. So it's, and plus it's just a good group of old guys, and not all of them are real old, but we're, it's just fun to sit there, you visit, you look at other cars, and some of the work is absolutely beautiful.
I remember talking to Bobby Unser, and I said, "What was it like? You're driving an Olsenite Eagle." He said, "I'm going to tell you something. First couple of years, I didn't know what the hell Olsenite was." He said, "Then I got a case of toilet seats. I went, oh, that's what they are." He said, "As a matter of fact, I still got some left." What's your primary thing? I mean, you've got. If Grant King were to come back today, he'd say, "This is not my shop." Why? Because it's clean and you can see.
Yeah,
It's lighted.
I'm a pain. You can ask Mike. When you drop something on the floor or make a mess, it better get clean. But we try to keep the place nice, and we have a lot of people that come in tour, and a lot of the museum. We ended up actually the Speedway contacted us last weekend and said we have some people from New Zealand that want to see your shop. This was Sunday, so Steph says, "Well, we'll do it." We really didn't want to do much on Sunday because we've been down there 7 days a week forever. We show up, and there's not 2 New Zealanders. There's 2 bus loads and two cars. We're like, oh boy, glad you told us about this one. But it was fun. They enjoyed it and had a good time. So, the museum part of it's great. There's a ton of history in there, and we get more and more. It was really neat. The month of May, had a gentleman walk in the door and kind of caught me off guard, and it was the Snevas. Really? And they came in, we talked, looked around, and they all the Snevas had history in our shop somewhere along the line, from our Indy cars to the sprint cars, the Pink Lady. And 2 weeks later, in the mail, I receive a uniform from Tom Sneva, a helmet from Jan Sneva, postcards, all their pictures from when they won the camera championships, and it was really neat. And they sent a really nice letter that said that the best thing they had in the whole month of May was the tour and visit at our shop, and that they thoroughly loved it. And about a week later, had another gentleman show up, and hadn't seen him in a long time, and his wife is Joy Astone, which is Wally Muskowski's daughter. And Wally worked in our shop for a long time.
Yeah, he did.
And Tommy was great. And Tommy won several races in a Grant King car, and he actually won an Aggie's house car. And yesterday I got another box in the mail, and it had all of Tommy's pictures of his wins and had Tommy's uniform in the box. So it's really neat that a lot of the old drivers are appreciating what we're doing and helping us build on everything, because it's a lot different. I think our place has personality, where if you go to the Speedway Museum, you see a lot of neat stuff, but nobody can tell you the story on it, or you don't get the story. And that's something we really work hard on. Every corner of our shop has a story. Some of them might be real interesting that we can't tell you, but there's plenty of stories.
Well, I find that hard to believe.
And I got to give kudos to a gentleman that's here tonight also, Bill P. in Speedway Community Television. Bill has been working very hard for probably the last year and a half, 2 years, I would say. And he stopped in, filmed different events that we've had. And it was really a surprise, and he did a spectacular job. And I've heard nothing.
No, wait a minute. Was it a surprise that he did a good job?
I had a feeling he'd do well, but when I seen it, it was pretty spectacular. And he's been showing a little snippet on our shop the whole month of May on Speedway Television. So it's kind of fun to watch, and you can look it up on YouTube also, under Working Race Shop Museum, and you need to watch it just because you'll see the kind of work Bill does. It's great.
And I can't thank them enough for being here every week for the last, year and a half, Ted? whatever 2 years that they do the television camera that gets on my website, on YouTube, and on Speedway Television. I want to thank both Bill and Brian for that. And I also got to take a second and thank my IT genius, Ted. We've had some problems the last couple of weeks, but he's got them solved. Because I haven't a clue. And I sent him a message when he sent me something, we got to do this. And I sent him a message, you need my help? He said, what the hell are you going to do? That's true. Nothing. So I got to thank Ted for his help. You have a service that nobody else in town has. Now, there's a museum, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but you have a vehicle if somebody, gets 6 or 8 guys, gals, or a mix thereof and want to tour some shops, they can contact you and do that. You'll pick them up somewhere and take them around and drop them back.
Yeah, we have a 37-foot stretch limo.
Oh, yeah, that's what it is.
It's kind of fun. We enjoy that. That's one of the fun things we get to do. We've kind of toned it down to where we pick people up from their destination. We'll give them a tour of our shop and then take them back. Just because we've got so much going on that it takes almost 2 hours to go through our shop properly now.
So that's it? You pick them up, take them to your place? You don't take them out to lunch? Or?
We can do whatever they want.
Okay. Okay. Well, you got Mike in action. Heck, you can leave. Mike will take over.
Mike does a good job when I leave. We depend on him quite a bit.
What is it you want to accomplish that you haven't? You've been involved in racing. You've driven. Your daughter drove. She won. You've been involved, and so has Fluffy, or as other people call her,
I would tend something that I'm working on really hard, and a goal of Stephanie and mine is to put a car in the Indy 500.
Really? One of the 71s or 74s? Or?
No, it would be a more modern version, but that's something that I'm really working on hard, and I'd like to do that the next few years. There's a lot of good people that I work with. Financially, we can't do it by ourselves, but we know a lot of people, and we would like to. We're trying to put the finances together through several different people, and I'm trying to work with a few certain individuals to put a team together.
Really?
Yes.
I see. I know there's a team manager that's probably retired, but he might dust himself off. Lee Kunzman.
You know what? If we did go racing, it would be the old guys race team, because I think everybody would be 70 or older that I'd take to the track with me. So.
Well, I could recommend an engineer who's under 70, I'm quite sure.
Who's that?
Well, he's sitting right over there. He's got a 500 championship ring.
Can't be. He's friends with Buckman. Buckman's almost 80, so.
Yeah, well,
No, there's a lot of good guys we could get to put together.
What is it about racing, motorsports in particular, and racing, and IndyCar and short track, open wheel stuff, that you get in it? And look at me. I should have left 50 years ago, even though I've been doing this for 50 years. I should have left a long time ago. I could have been a singer with Phil would have hired me for his the Beep Line band, and I'd have been a star.
Could have been, yes.
And trouble is, he said that what would I do? Well, you can pick up the equipment and move it would be my suggestion. And incidentally, if you haven't seen Beep Line, you got to see them.
They are good.
Their Facebook page is the Beep Line, one word, on Facebook. Look it up. They got stories. You see one on Phil, don't pay attention to that one. The other guys are professionals. Read those. But they're around the area, and they're getting bigger and better, and they're opening for some guy I never heard of. The end of the month. Is it the end of June? The end of July. They're doing something for some. What's the guy's name? I don't. John Wade? John Wade. I don't know him. I don't know of him. So they're the opening act, and you go out there and see them, and bring some tomatoes with you in case they're not that good. What got you into racing to begin with? How did you get hooked and started on it?
I don't know if it's unfortunate or fortunate, but I think I've told you before, on my 4th birthday, Ralph Ligori and Jim Hurtubise gave me my first quarter midget. And I've been racing ever since.
And Ralph is suffering for that right now.
Yes.
He's not in good shape. He's physically having a problem. We're sorry to hear that.
Well, Ralph wore out a lot of race cars at his time.
Oh, yeah. Well, has he raced, 6 decades? Over 6 or 7 decades he raced?
Yes.
7 decades. Amazing. Amazing guy. Good guy. always good to talk to him, but you can't talk to him anymore because he's got problems. But anyway, has it crossed your mind that, I've been doing this long enough now, I should maybe flip burgers at Burger King or something, or White Castle?
On certain days and certain times, yes.
I see.
Yeah, it crosses my mind, but we'd like to slow down in a few years, but it's right now we're full bore ahead, and I'm sure in a couple years Stephanie threatens that I've got to slow down and we're going to do a few things, but we just did a deal where we're going to take a streamliner to Bonneville. We were hired to do that, so.
Yeah, but see, the good thing about what you just said, you were hired to do it.
Yes.
You're not doing it. You were hired to go out and do it, so that's a good thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Somebody else is paying the bills.
Right. Yes.
That works well.
Yes.
It's interesting, this sport, and the number of people that, even kids that come out that I see at the various vintage operations, young kids are looking, wow. It started here, and look where it is today. And, it's interesting. They get to talk to some of the old drivers and see what it was all about, what it was like, and get interested in it. And of course, once you get somebody interested in this sport, you got them. Oh
yeah. All you need to do is go out to the fairgrounds and watch some of those little kids with their quarter midgets. It's fun. Just watching them, you'll giggle and laugh. But some of those little guys and girls are very talented.
It was just announced today that the Lucas Oil Driving School, or Racing School, is now the official driving school of the Road to Indy program. And that's great. I know the guy that owns it, that started it, Neil Enerson from Newport Richey, Florida. And he's got a phenomenal thing going, and now they're the official driving school, so they'll take kids and get them educated how to drive, and then they can move up to the USF 2000 and on. And of course, if you pay attention to the Road to Indy program, the ladder program, there's so many guys and gals that have come through that are now in IndyCar. In fact, there's more of them than there are openings, unfortunately.
Yeah. You can watch them step up through the different ladders, from the go-karts up through all the different series.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time, and don't forget, obviously, how many cars are you taking to WT Gateway?
It's hard to tell. We're probably going to end up working on more cars so we probably won't even take any of our own cars.
Oh, well, that's too bad.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
If you got guys calling you, say, hey, if you're going to take a car, I'd like to drive it.
On that deal, a lot of them are the owners that actually drive, or their relatives or friends. And that can be interesting in itself, because a lot of them are nervous and don't know that much about them, and you have to calm them down. And there's a lot of different aspects to the whole deal, from just wrenching the car, making sure it's safe, to restoring one properly, where the identity is perfect on it, to actually taking care of some of these car owners. But it's fun. It's low pressure compared to running with the All-Stars or something like we used to,
Yeah, so. Well, all right. I always enjoy going down to the shop. And again, if you haven't had a chance to be there yet, now you won't see Howdy there. Howdy will not be there, because he'll be taking a nap during the day. He won't be there. But they're located.
Hey, we got a great couch in the back room there.
Oh boy, now he will be there. And they're located at 8144 Crawfordsville Road.
8155.
55. Well, I know it was 8155 Crawfordsville Road. And if you're going west on Crawfordsville Road, as you go up the hill, if you get to Dandy Trail, you went too far. It's on the left, and you'll see it. Go down the hill there, and stop in, see him, catch him by surprise.
Yeah, we have no problem with that.
Anyway, keep an eye out. If you get a chance, stop in and see him. Thanks for being here. Bill Throckmorton.
Thank you.
My next guest will be on his way momentarily once he gets released from captivity. I want to mention to you, if you haven't seen the Mario Andretti exhibition at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum, don't hesitate. Go there and see it. It's really quite good. And when you walk in the door, you see this nice-looking blonde sitting there. Tell her, I heard about it. I got to be here. She'll take care of you. You know, if you want to find out what these guys like about, and gals that like about the riding an Indy car, take a ride in a two-seater, the Indy Racing Experience. It's a great event, great time. You'll enjoy the heck out of it. It might scare you a little bit, but we've only had one problem where the wing fell off, and that was a number of years ago. It hadn't happened since. You might get a ride with Mario or Davey Hamilton, or who knows? You never can tell. Go on their website, indyracingexperience.com, and find a date. And in the promo box, put SJ1. You get a 50% discount. Or you could call Shonda at 317-243-7171. Do yourself a favor. Take a ride. You'll love it. And the best part of it is, Howdy won't be there. He's afraid. I've tried to get him to... No. He said, oh, here he comes. Sit down before you fall down. If you like vintage racing, SVRA has a fabulous magazine. It's called Speed Tour now. It's a first-class magazine, great articles, great stories about the cars that you knew as kids. Read about them, read about the drivers, see who's doing it. Just go to svra.com and order the Speed Tour Quarterly. You'll love it. It's a great magazine. And our next event will be the 2019 Portland Vintage Racing Festival, July 25th to the 28th at Portland International Raceway. If you're anywhere in the Northwest, take a ride. You'll love it. And the next event after that, August 1st to the 4th, is the Brickyard Vintage Racing Invitational at the Speedway. You'll want to see that. Do you need anything embroidered? Well, there's only one place to go, of course, and that's Stitches 2 on Gasoline Alley. Just give Fran a call and tell her what you need, how you throw it, drag it, send it, ship it, whatever it takes to get it there, she'll take care of it. Her number is 317-271-3444. My next guest is a gentleman who spent a lifetime in motorsports for some inexplicable reason. He has, in his early time, driven sprint cars. I couldn't do that, and wouldn't do it, actually. He worked his way through, worked for Chris Economaki at National Speed Sport News, got connected with Bruton Smith, and was the general manager and promoter at the New Hampshire Speedway. He decided, I can do this, so he has taken over promotion of the Gas City Speedway, and from what I understand, it's booming. Please welcome Mr. Jerry Gappens.
Thank you. I appreciate you inviting me on there.
Well, I had to apologize to your lady that does the PR, because I read it, but I didn't pay attention to where it came from, because it never crossed my mind. And she sent me an email that says, why, U.S., what did you?
Linda and I Linda Mansfield does a great job for us, and we're both disciples of Chris Economaki's School of Motorsports. We both got our doctorate degree from him and in motorsports, and that's good. And Linda was the first female editor, the news editor for the paper back in her day, from Pennsylvania. So we used to go see Linda at a lot of sprint car tracks out in the Pennsylvania area when I worked at Speed Sport. And so we've gone back a long way. And when I started working with the track, I've got a PR background, but I don't have time to do all the things you need to do with it. So Linda and I met, and she agreed to help out, and it's worked out really well.
Was taking over the management and promotion at Gas City a mistake, or are you thrilled and happy with what's going on, other than Mother Nature now?
Yeah, no, and you can't control that. So as I've gotten older, I try to learn it. Doesn't mean you like it a little less. I pray a lot, especially on Fridays. In fact, I've got a great guy that's a prayer partner, and for the USAC midget race a few weeks ago, I said, man, Bruce, we need to pray that the rain. He says, man, I've got this. He said, I'm going to pray that it goes to the north and to the south of us. And it did. But it rained all those other areas, but not right at the track. We ran it. We had a decent crowd, but not the great crowd we would have had if it had been clear all around. And so I went back to him and I said, he answered our prayers, but I said, we left out one important thing. I said, pray for a big crowd too next time. So we're working on it, and God's responded nicely. But it was, it's been very rewarding. I was honored in January at the Harf banquet to be the recipient of the Mike Heimel auction promoter of the year that Harf gives out every year, and I didn't expect that for our first year of operation, and so with the BC 39 and all these other great promoters that we have in Indiana to win that was good. But I'll tell you, just meeting the fans and having the fans come and say, we really appreciate you opening this place back up and getting it going, that's been very rewarding.
What have you done since you've taken over? Now, you leased the facility, didn't you?
Right. Yeah,
So
I've got a
now it's
multi-year lease and an option to buy if I get crazy enough to ever think about doing that. But you know, we really cleaned up the facility quite a bit from what it was. We repainted all the about anything that hasn't moved. We've painted, and last year we installed a brand new public address system that's right up there that works. We've got a wireless mic capability. We like to do some intermission things as well, in addition to the racing, that appeals to some of the other folks that maybe aren't hardcore race fans but want to come out for entertainment. So the PA part of it's very a big part of it. So we just keep trying to make a difference. We asphalt the entrance all the way from the highway in. Takes you right into the pit area as well. A lot of people commented on that this year. So we keep doing things to make it more fan-friendly and making it clean and an inviting place to bring a whole family.
I've heard from a friend of mine who's a short track fiend.
A fiend. What exactly is a fiend? I've heard that my whole life. Do you know what the definition of fiend is? Because I really don't. I didn't know. But a fiend, it means they're pretty passionate about it, though, right?
And they're idiots.
Yeah. Oh, okay. They're idiots.
He said, I said, have you been up to Gas City? He said, I went once. I said, why only once? Because you love it. He said, well, the fans that have been there will reserve their seats, like at 2 o'clock in the morning the day before.
I know. I didn't know when they snuck in. So 2 o'clock in the morning, because they do sneak in and put blankets down, yeah.
Yeah, and he said, if you even get close, they let you know. Whoa. But I understand when Mother Nature has cooperated, your car count has been spectacular. You've drawn upwards of 100 cars on more than one occasion, and the grandstands are full, which the last couple of years it ran, they weren't, because I was there.
Okay. Yeah, no, we've benefited. We've been fortunate enough to only be rained out twice. So some of the other tracks in the area, unfortunately, have been rained out, so we've benefited from that. Our car count, what do we have, 116 cars Friday night, Linda? We've been in the 105 to 116 range. I think the lowest car count was it 90, or have we been above 100? About 90. So we've been very fortunate. We bring different classes in each week, kind of as we've got our core of non-wing sprints, modified street stocks, and Hornets, and then we try to bring a guest series in, such as micro sprints, mini sprints, or tough trucks that come in over from Ohio. To add something different to the program. So we've been very fortunate. The back gate's been very good in that regard with the pit passes.
Do you do anything with USAC? Do you do sprints or midgets out there?
Yeah, we were just part of the USAC Midget Week, and that's where we dodged the rain. And then we were off the schedule last year for Sprint Week, but they put us back on this year, so we've got a Sprint Week date coming up. We kick it open. Thank you. Yeah, that's pretty important. On Thursday, July 18th, we open Sprint Week, and so they'll go from us to Plymouth and then to Kokomo, Lawrenceburg, and then Wednesday the following week they go to Terre Haute, Putnamville, Bloomington, and then finish it up at Hofstad. So they added a race, which I didn't think they would do. So they didn't take anything away from somebody. They put us back on it, which was great. It's going to be a Thursday night instead of a Friday. I'm fine with that. And then we come back with last year they gave me a race. And we were supposed to do it Brickyard Weekend. If you remember, that was just torrential rains the whole time. So we were able to do make the James Dean Classic a USAC sanctioned race, and that was our largest crowd last year as part of the James Dean Festival there. James Dean was born just about 10-15 minutes from where the track is, and raised there in Fairmount. So he's still, even all these years later, still a big icon. So it was good. Yeah.
I think some of his relatives are still around.
Yeah. In fact, I deal with Marcus Winslow, who was his cousin, and he lived with Marcus and his dad, that family on the farm. James's mother passed away when he was like 8 or 10 years old. They were living in California, and his dad sent him back to Indiana because he couldn't take care of him working on the railroad and traveling. So his aunt and uncle there, the Winslows, raised him, and that farm is still there, and it's still a lot of nostalgia there for James Dean people that come in.
What got you started in racing? Why?
You know, my dad took me to races when I was a little boy. I enjoyed going with him. He raced a little bit at the Kokomo Speedway, and I would go up to watch him, and then I'd ride back with him in his pickup truck and the open trailer. And I remember putting his racing helmet on and falling asleep in the front seat, you know, with him. Back then, trucks didn't have rear seats; there's just one cab. So, but I enjoyed that. And I got to go to my first Indy 500 in 1969. I think I was 8 years old, and so we went to that every year. But we would go to races around this area, and we'd go to the Hoosier 100 and you know, the Hut 100. Kokomo. We would travel, so we had that. That's one of those things. A father-son thing to do that I was fortunate enough to get to, and so it hooked me. And then when I was just 15, just shy of my 16th birthday, I bought a used sprint car to fix up with the idea of racing it. And so my first race, I was just a few weeks shy of my 16th birthday, and I raced down at Paragon. So I had a couple years of driving sprint cars, and then my mom stepped in when I was getting ready to go to Ball State for college, and she said, you need to retire from race car driving real quick. I'm not sending you over there to educate you just to see you get killed in a race car. So my career stopped abruptly at 18 years of age. So I could have been to Jeff Gordon before Jeff Gordon, ever materialized.
You never know.
The best line was we bought a brand new Lloyd Shores car. It wasn't brand new. It was used. I bought it from a gentleman named Dave Robinson. Dave used to do the fiberglass work. Back then, sprint cars had fiberglass bodies. You even covered the tail tank with them. And it came with a wing, and so we got the bright idea we'd go to Eldora for the season finale and run a wing race. Well, my mom had been to Eldora a few times, and she saw those cars with the violent flips. And so Dad and I are loaded up, and we got the trailer hooked up and ready to go. And she goes, let me tell both of you one thing. If that race car and the two of you leave for Eldora together, all your crap will be in the front yard when you get back. And we looked at each other, and we decided, Dad says, I think she's serious this time. And I said, yeah, I think so too, Dad. I said, I think, he says, what do you say we unhook the trailer and we just go over and watch? I said, I think that's a great idea. And so Dad's been gone about 5.5 years, but Mom still helps us out at the track. She sells pit passes and runs the gift shop, whatever it takes to help out over the track. But she's been a big supporter. But she did not want to see her, at that time, 17-year-old son go run at Eldora. So I never ran Eldora.
Do you realize that if you had done that and had a problem, you wouldn't be here tonight?
I realize that, yeah. So I've been very fortunate. I didn't make a career out of driving, but I made one from the business standpoint of it. I mean, as you said earlier, I worked for Chris Economaki and learned a lot. Got to see all forms. With Chris, the great thing about him, you could be standing in 6 inches of mud at Eldora on a Saturday, and on Tuesday you could be at Tavern on the Green in New York City at an IMSA press conference with a suit and tie on, and he really taught me how to transition from one to the other. I mean, I was just basically a country boy from Indiana, and so working for him, and especially in Metro New York area, his office, you could see the skyline. He was in New Jersey, so that helped quite a bit. And then to go from there and then work for Humpy Wheeler and Bruton Smith at Charlotte, and then they kept expanding and building the company, and they bought New Hampshire, sent me up to run it. I've been very fortunate to be able to make my living out of motorsports. In fact, I talked to Bruton Smith this afternoon. He's up in his 90s. He doesn't get around well, but he's still going to the races. He went to Sonoma last week. He's going to go up to New Hampshire in a couple of weeks, but he sounded good.
And his son is running the operation now.
Yeah, Marcus is taking over. One of the things when I was running New Hampshire, Bruton would call a week or two before the race, and he'd call you every day, how are ticket sales, and he would stay right on you. And then he'd also transition to the operational side of things, and he'd say, have you checked the toilet seats? And I was like, no, I really, I haven't done that. Why is that important? And he said, nobody likes loose toilet seats. And he said, and then if somebody's consumed too much beer, they think they're Hercules, and they like to jerk those things off, and then you got a broken toilet. And so I always made sure we checked the toilet seats. Here's a guy that's sitting in Charlotte, North Carolina. He's a billionaire, and he's worried about toilet seats up in New Hampshire. But then, so he really paid attention to detail. And then the other thing he'd make sure is, now you got somebody that's going to fry up some onions and peppers and stuff right under the grandstand, right? You get that aroma going so they get hungry and go to the concession stand. So Bruton is obviously one of the great promoters and motorsports businessmen in history, and then Humpy was the world's greatest showman. I talked to Humpy a couple weeks ago. I wanted to bring in midget wrestling as part of the USAC Midget Show. And I had it planned. I had the midgets lined up, and I had a rig set up to wheel that rink out there and have a midget boxing, midget wrestling match, and then wheel it off. This was going to be my intermission entertainment. And we put the release out in social media, and I got a call from the USAC people, and in particular, they got a president there that didn't think that was quite politically correct. And I tried to say, well, man, this is normal stuff in Charlotte under Humpy Wheeler. That's where I learned from. And he said, that could be, but you're probably stepping over the line. And so I respected his decision, and so I postponed that. So we'll do it later this year. But there's a lot of Humpy Wheeler and Bruton Smith in the way I look at stuff and how we try to run Gas City.
Did you ever get involved with Eddie Gossage?
Yeah, Eddie, when I got hired at Charlotte, Eddie was the VP of Public Relations, and he hired me as the director. I worked directly under him, and then when Bruton was going to build Texas Motor Speedway, he took Eddie out there and he did it. So then I was promoted to Eddie's job. But I worked with Eddie. He's there in a class by himself as well, and him and Humpy would argue all the time because Humpy's an ex-PR guy, and Eddie was pretty headstrong. But we would do press conferences all the time and put people. I put Humpy on top of an elephant. We had a press conference on a Wednesday. I put Kenny Wallace on a camel because it's Hump Day. We would do we'd blow things up all the time. And Eddie thought he was going to get fired by Bruton the year they flipped on the lights. They put the first super speedway in Charlotte to install lights. Musco had to design it, and so had a press conference, and we made this fake power box to turn the lights on, and we had explosives behind it, and the explosives, all the sparkles came up, and they landed right in Bruton's head. And Eddie was in charge, of course, and so we went a little heavy on the pyro. Well, that picture made the Associated Press, and a buddy of Bruton's called from California and said, "You're on fire." And here, Eddie thought he was going to get fired. He said, "Man, I've just burned up the boss, and he's going to fire me." And he laughed about it. He called him and said, "Hey, my buddy from California called. He saw that picture. That was great, because he understood the value of publicity." And so we you can't buy that kind of experience. In fact, I was at Kokomo Sunday night when Robert Ballou had that unfortunate crash coming across the start-finish line and hitting that. And it reminded me of the 1992 Winston All-Star race where Kyle Petty and Davey Allison were battling. And Davey, they crashed, and Davey got hurt a little bit, and they took him directly to the hospital. So the car went to Victory Lane. Davey went to the hospital, and Kyle's sitting there looking at it. And that's what happened to Robert the other night. He went to the hospital. They didn't take the car to Victory Lane, but Dave Darland stepped in. But that was the kind of finish there they had the other night at Kokomo. But yeah, I've lived some pretty good memories there.
Well, I've mentioned this a number of times, and you may remember it. And I forget what year it was when Danica and Dan Weldon had a little to-do.
Yeah.
And she smacked him with something. I can't remember what it was. The next day, outside Texas Speedway, round 2 is here.
Yeah. No, Eddie bought billboards and stuff and put them up there. And, Darrell Waltrip just stepped away from the sport, retiring. And of course, he was called Jaws. Cale Yarborough nicknamed him Jaws because he was always yapping. And he was kind of, pretty vocal about things. And at the time, Cale Yarborough was sponsored by Holly Farms, which was a chicken farm. And so Humpy, first he wanted to put a guy named Moon Huffstetler. He was a swimmer. They called him the Catawba Catfish. The Catawba River is just south of Charlotte. Well, they wanted to put him in the shark tank with a shark, and he had set a record for treading in water. So Humpy thought it'd be a great idea, and we're in this meeting, and Eddie says, "Well, what if the shark eats him?" He says, "Well, we'll put one of those metal armor guard suits on him and stuff." And the other, Ed Clark, who runs the land, he said, "He'll sink, he'll drown." And something else. And then finally, "Well, you guys figure it out then. I came up with the idea. You figure out how to do it." But so what the compromise was, Humpy was an avid fisherman over to coastal in the Carolinas. So he would bring, so he found a shark. and it was dead. And he brought it over, and they put the shark on the back of a wrecker on the hook with a chicken in its mouth. And they took it up and down pit road to try to add a little bit of flavor to the festivities in Charlotte.
How much does these kind of things help your audience? Do people come in and they expect entertainment? Like you could get a band to come out and play at a in between or after.
Yeah, I want to talk to you. I think that'd be a good idea for USAC Sprint Week to do a pre or post
stops
race
thinking
thing.
about you, pal?
Yeah, it's very important because the entertainment aspect of it. We try to do fun things at intermission. We have human bubble ball. We've done this past week. We put a couple $100 of nickels and candy on a tarp on the front straightaway and let the kids. It's a coin scramble, and the kids love that, and the parents and that's the one thing I've really noticed. We're getting a lot more families. We're getting a lot of kids that come. We have a playground there, and the cool thing was about out of the $200, about 150 of it came right back through the concession stand. So and the gift shop. So the kids took it, and then we tripled that money, with the economy. So it had a ripple effect on the economy there in Gas City. But we're going to bring in a stunt plane that'll do some performances during the intermission later this year. We got the other coming back. This Friday night, we're actually doing a battle of the sexes. So we're going to have 2 men, 2 women, and they'll do one-on-one spectator races and see who the supreme gender is in that regard. I need I got 2 male drivers. I need 2 female drivers. So you just need a car and a helmet, and you're good.
Nina?
I know. One more drink over there, and we could probably get Nina to do it.
You do what Eddie used to do. Get Robbie Knievel to come over and jump in the mud.
Yeah. No, we could. We're open to all those things. So I went to during the winter. I went down here. Indianapolis hosted a State Fair Association convention, and they have all the vendors there. And so I went down to it to try to get ideas for intermission, and it's basically everybody that's involved with a fair in Indiana. They were there, and they have seminars. But so I just wanted to run through the vendor stuff, and then afterwards I wanted to join the membership. And these guys are carnies for a living, And carnies, in all due respect, they're not the top tier of human life. I mean, they're really not. And they travel all the time. And so I go up and I say, I'm Jerry Gappens. I run the Gas City I-69 Speedway, and I'd like to join your club. And they look at me and like, don't know. He said, you don't run a fair? No. Don't carnival? No. I said, we run a speedway. It's entertainment. And they look at each other and said, we don't know. And I never thought I'd have to fight that hard to get associated with carnies. So they finally hand me a piece of paper like this, and they said, well, here's the application. You take it back and fill it out and send it to us, and we'll think about it. And, I still haven't accepted me yet. But I got some valuable information there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Racing is a sport, but it's a business. And, you got to get things to get people interested, get them in and entertain them. And my hat is off to you. If you can get families to come bring kids, because I'm one that went to the race here. A friend of mine brought me here in 1962. I didn't want to go. I fought and argued. I came down here. I had a Mercury Comet station wagon. I was a real go-getter.
That wasn't it?
Oh.
You picked up chicks with that, didn't you?
Oh,
Yeah.
Baby. We brought our wives. They slept inside. We slept outside.
Yeah,
It rained.
that's how I used to do it at Indy. I remember that too, yeah.
And it rained. And I said, I'm not going to the race.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, come on, no. I said, but I'll tell you what, you better hurry back or the beer will be gone. Well, they talked me into going, and those cars came out of 4, and I'm still here.
Yeah.
There's something about this sport that gets you.
No, and I'm very fortunate. Like with Bill, I'm one of those guys that could spend 2 hours at a shop, and I have. I'm kind of an old soul in one way because of going back and remembering all those things. And I remember when you could walk down pit road in Indianapolis and you could tell that was a Kingfish, or this was a McLaren, or that was a March, or this is a PC9 or a PC10. You knew the difference by the roll bars and some of the Coyote and all that. And I missed that part of it. So that's one of the great things that I really enjoy about Bill's shop. And like you said, seeing an aluminum tub those are kind of like dinosaurs now. So I'm very fortunate that I came up in an era where I appreciate the history and had a chance to be close to it, but yet also futuristic with how Bruton and Humpy looked at things, and even that we try to continue to do today with our promotions.
Yeah, I bet you learned a lot from Bruton. Bruton wasn't stupid. He's a good businessman.
Nah.
And he knew what would attract attention, and obviously you picked up on that.
Oh yeah.
Because if you didn't, he told you about it.
He did. No, he did. No, he always reminded me we were a for-profit company. As a general manager, he'd say, we are a for-profit company, and I said, yes, sir, I understand that. We had a race that was affected by rain. It was the USAC Midget Show, and we had a lot of people come from out of state, never been there, or they hadn't been in years, and they were really impressed with how the facility looked. And at the end of the night, I was trying to figure out if we made any money or not, and our social media guy who's tuning in tonight, Jacob, he said, I hope we made some money. And Jacob says, he says, Jerry, it doesn't matter. We made a real statement tonight. He said, people got to see the facility. They're really impressed with what they saw. This is going to benefit us from, even more this season. People are going to come back here. And I looked at it, and I was thinking the only statement I'm interested right now is my bank statement. So, but he was right. I walked away later that night, and then I went to Putnamville the next night for the Midget Show, and I was amazed at how many people came forward that were in Oklahoma, other states that hadn't been there, and really enjoyed the experience. And so that's when it's really a rewarding part of it. But the business, and the good news for us this year, I'm seeing more and more business. The crowds are up from what they were last year. It took a little longer to get the brand out there. I think we got some of the hardcore people back fairly quickly, but you got to get those fringe fans, and that's what we've worked hard at. So we're definitely making good progress, and we're I'm very thankful for the people that come out and sample the product and visit us. So I'm encouraged, and I'm a pretty optimistic person, but I think it's only going to get better.
From your perspective, is short track racing healthy? Now, I'm thinking primarily of open wheel, which I don't know if you have a lot of, but you have a boatload of stock cars and various series there. But do you think short track racing is healthy right now?
I do. I think, and I made a great career and a great living in NASCAR, but NASCAR through the years has alienated a lot of fans, and I think a lot of those fans have returned to the roots of short track racing. And I look over at the King's Royal and where they're filling that thing with 20,000 plus people that are coming to that. It's outdrawn the NASCAR truck race now. You look at the SmackDown up at Kokomo, and it fills the grandstands for 3 or 4 nights there. So I think people can relate to the short track part of it. And the only thing I really concerns me is more on the competitive side of it, where the shocks on a sprint car. I mean, I saw 4 shocks go out of Scott Bennick's shop there in Marion over the winter, and it was $6,500 worth of shocks for a Silver Crown car. And I was like, I never owned a race car that cost more than $6,500. So I worry about the cost for competitors. Now, the other night we had 40 non-wing sprint cars, and then Sunday night they had 21 at Kokomo, and I'm like, well, maybe Sunday night would hurt you a little, but where does it go from 40 to 21? So I think it's important to try to keep things affordable. I bought a Gertie engine in 1979 for my sprint car, and it was $10,000, and that was from the oil pound. All I had to do is stick it in the race car and go racing. The same engine now is over $50,000, and so that concerns me, and that's why you're seeing people try to experiment a little bit with crate engines, the 305s, the 360s. But I think we have to watch the cost to keep it healthy where we got participants. But I think race fans, truly, I went to Winchester on Sunday afternoon. I did Kokomo later, but Winchester had the sprints back for the first time in 9 years, and they had a tremendous crowd, and the place, it had that energy about it, and the history with the old-timers part of it, and it was really kind of cool to see people turning out. So I think short track racing's definitely on the rise. Yeah.
Well, I remember being at Winchester when Sarah Fisher set the midget record.
Yeah.
It didn't last long, but she set the record, and the number of drivers who went on from open wheel short track up to IndyCar racing that said, "How'd you like Winchester?" Scared the hell out of me. Are you kidding? I didn't like it. Well, we ran it, but I was scared.
Yeah,
I didn't like it.
They have respect for it, because it's bitten a lot of people in its day. I was watching the Thunder Roadster race right afterwards, and they sounded a little bit like Indy cars with the Yamaha motors in them. And I was sitting there thinking that it might be cool to have like an Indy Lights race there. And if you could get Wyndham and Swanson and some of our local guys that could, if they could get rides in those, I think that would be a great part of a weekend with sprint cars. And when I was a kid growing up, USAC used to race a lot of double headers at places
Right.
like Winchester. You'd have the sprints and the midgets, and it was a great show here in Salem and over in New Bremen. It seemed like a lot of it was on asphalt, but it was good to see that crowd and just to see the thing come back to life.
Do you think that it's kind of harmful a little bit that you can't go into the short track open wheel stuff and work your way to Indianapolis anymore? Now you got to come from some other country, run Formula One for 6 or 7 years, and then come here and realize this is a place to race. It doesn't happen. The Foyts and the Snevas and those people that worked their way up and got there, it doesn't happen very seldom anymore.
No, and I understand that, and the money part of it. That's one of the things that frustrates me just a little bit about the USAC midget part of it. Toyota's obviously a big player, and that's great to have a major company putting money in, but they're developing those drivers to go to NASCAR because that's what Toyota's involved in. Right. I hope, I don't know any behind-the-scenes information, but I hope that Jay Fry and those guys over there are maybe Toyota's one of those manufacturers that's taking a look at IndyCar, but it's going to take having some manufacturers involved that maybe have a presence in midgets or sprint cars that will look at taking their talent to IndyCar racing besides just NASCAR, because we've lost Kyle Larson. I mean, it goes back quite a bit with Schrader and Gordon and Stewart, and a lot of them have gone to NASCAR through the years. But I really think, but it's economics, and with Bill talking about putting a team together, my first thought was, guys, I hope he gets a Brian Clausen type of driver, but it all boils down to the economics of it, and I know that.
And the short tracks, and I don't think it's changed yet, but a couple years ago, the midget engine cost more than a sprint car engine.
I know.
By a lot.
Yeah.
They weren't cheap.
No. And there's only half as many cylinders, Go figure.
And you mentioned when you take your car to the track, you had an open trailer that you put it in. Now these guys reel up, and they've got these big enclosed trailers.
They're tractor trailers, yeah.
Some of them have transporters, yeah.
I mean, they make tiny houses look small. My first house wasn't as big as some of those that come into the pits.
That's probably true. Are you happy you made the transition, that you left New Hampshire and came here, took over?
Yeah,
this track?
I spent 1 year in Charlotte before coming up, but I love it. I'm from near the Kokomo, the Sharpsville area up there. I have my family's still based here. I have 2 sons that still live. They're adults and married and everything. They still live in North Carolina, so I do miss being a little closer to them and seeing them. But I can drive down there pretty quick and fly even quicker. But it's nice to be around my mom and my nieces and nephews and their kids and my brother and sister. So Indiana's home, and I've never forgotten my roots. When I went to work for Chris Economaki, he hired me for the summer. I was between my sophomore and junior years at Ball State. So I figured I'd have a good summer job and come back in the fall for my junior year at Ball State, but he kept me. So what I thought would be a 3-month vacancy out of Indiana ended up being 36 years. So, but now I'm back. So it just took me a while.
I remember I had Dave Argerbright, who wrote the book on.
Yeah.
And I said, what was it like spending time with Chris? He said, are you kidding me? He doesn't pay any attention to anything. If he wants to go from here to there and there's a one-way street, he don't give a crap which way. He's going whatever's the easiest. So I was scared to death.
He didn't want to ride in a car with him. I remember we did a U-turn on right at Times Square in New York City. We were going to some function there for racing IMSA or whatever, and a truck was blocking his passage, so he just did a U-turn, got up on the sidewalks, people scattering. We came back around, and he's just oblivious to a little Audi sports car that he'd drive, and his wife Tommy used to say it's a white knuckle ride every time with him.
That's what I hear is true.
And Chris would always say, Jerry, welcome to New York City with broken hearts and dented fenders.
Chris was a great guy. I spent a lot of time, mostly here, when he came in for the month. And it was funny. Everybody's rat-a-tatting on computers, and they had a regular typewriter for him.
The media centers all around, they would have the old manual thing, and I called them beaters. He could beat on those things. And when Radio Shack came out with the Tandy 100, we thought that was great. He thought it was an Etch-a-Sketch. He'd shake it or whatever. What the heck? He was amazed. When we used to have a telecopier. Now this is going back a lot of people, but it was a cylinder, and it would take either 4 or 6 minutes over the phone line to and we thought that was a great thing. Yeah. And he would stand there and he'd watch that thing, and he was in amazement how that little pin would go, and all of a sudden it would bring out the replica of the other, and then the fax machine came in, and that was like over the top for him, and then he was done by email. Yeah. So he was but I tell you what, he was probably one of the most knowledgeable and respected guys. His Rolodex on his desk, there were a couple of them. He had more contacts and more people. He knew how to get things done, and he had a nose for news for sure.
Well, it appears from what I've heard about your facility up there and what you're doing with it, you've learned as you've gone up. It took you 36 years, but you've learned, and now you're here. And again, I hear it's doing really, really, really well. What have you got scheduled for the 4th of July? Anything special?
Yeah, we're going to try a Saturday night on the 4th. A local track, Montpelier's closed down, and I always kind of wanted to see what a Saturday would be like. So we've got Circle City Pyros. Don and his gang will come down and come up and do fireworks, and then we've got the non-wing sprints, modifieds, all of our racing, and so the fireworks will be a big thing on a Saturday night, and so that'll be on Saturday night, July 6th. So I'm hoping that'll work well. Friday night, Bloomington had scheduled some stuff, and Paragon's got that as well. So we thought maybe Saturday. I mean, I know Saturday's still got Lincoln Park, and you've got Lawrenceburg, but we'll see how it all balances out there with car counts and where we are. But I just, one of the struggles with Gas City that is it's Friday, so people are working. So then they make a bonsai run, and anybody in this area that wants to come down, you got to deal with construction and everything here in Indianapolis and I-69. So I'm anxious to try a Saturday where people can leisurely mosey on up to exit 259 off of I-69 and enjoy some racing that way.
Well, from what I understand, and from your PR lady here, who I circumvented, not realizing, and I contacted you. In fact, one day she said, "You ought to have Jerry back." I said, "Yeah." You want me to get a hold of him? I said, "Oh, I know how to get a hold of him."
Yeah.
Didn't realize she was your PR gal. So.
Yeah. No, she's kind of she's stealth-like. She's kind of behind the scenes there and just makes it all happen.
I got down and bowed and apologized. It took me 15 minutes to get back up off the floor, but.
I really try to mess her up because I try to do a draft for her to make it as easy as possible, or to at least get my ideas into it, and then she takes it off from there and massages it, and then I'm too tired for race results, so I'll see where I get the email at 4 a.m. on from Friday night to Saturday where she's done the release, and then I'll have to put my glasses on and wipe the sleepies out of my eyes to proofread it, and then we get it out. But she's good.
She is good. I was sitting next to her in Watkins Glen. And she's sitting next to me, and we're talking. I'm just looking out the window to see who's going by. And the next day, or I get home. This was on a Sunday. I get home Monday, and she's reporting on a race that was in Europe somewhere. I said, "Now, how the hell did you do that? You were sitting right here. I saw you."
Yeah.
And she had a complete story. I went, "Good grief."
Yeah.
She's good.
No, she is. And Europe's 6 hours ahead of us, so. Yeah. If she did something from Australia, she could really be dangerous. Boy. Europe, Australia, you get all the continents covered, and just logistically work the time out.
Well, I thank you for coming up here, or down here actually.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time, and good luck on what you're doing, and hope everything works out for you. And if you get some Saturday program or something, put a good entertainment. This is a guy right here.
I know. We're going to work on that. And before I go, the last year I was introduced to you by Dick Jordan, and I texted Dick before we came. I don't know how he's feeling tonight, but he's struggling. Obviously, a lot of people know that, and I think about him every day. And I ask everybody to keep him in your thoughts and prayers. What a world-class gentleman Dick Jordan is, and I'm hoping he's able to tune in and see this film well enough tonight. But if not, what an incredible person that I've been fortunate to be around for nearly 40 years, and he's the one that got me here last year, and I appreciate that too.
And I talked to him today, actually.
Oh, good.
And I had called him a couple times and he didn't answer. So after it rings about 10 times, that's a sign that he doesn't feel well. He doesn't answer.
Right.
Well, he called me today and he said, I saw it. I haven't felt good for the last couple of weeks, but he said, if in time, if I feel well, I'll come in. I'll do your program.
Okay, good.
And I said, good, because Dr. Pat Sullivan's, I asked him if he'd come that night, and he said, oh, absolutely.
Right.
You get Dick there, I'll be there. I said, okay. So
No, they honored him at the Speedway, a month or so ago, and it was a who's who of racing that turned out, and it was really, I was glad to see that because the man's so well respected, and he still messes with the USAC Thunder, Midwest Thunder D2. He wants the results so he can keep up with the points. So he's still got his hand in it even today with trying to make sure USAC goes on and the history is preserved.
I have nothing but good things. As many years as I've known him, whenever I thought, there's a guy in town that I'd like to get a hold of, I didn't know how to get him, so I called Dick. He said, I'll get back to you. And sure enough, the guy be here.
Yeah. No,
Almost never failed. Whenever I called with something, I had a guest back out. Is there somebody from USAC that's in town? Let me look. And he called me back, and I get Dave or Rico Abreu or somebody.
Yeah.
So he was a great guy. I'm going to miss him terribly. He's just a super guy. Well, I thank you for your time and coming down here. Good luck, and congratulations on building what once was a good thing, tailed off, and now you've got to climb it again. That's great. And to hear you got 100 and some cars. Holy Toledo.
Yeah. No.
Is parking a problem?
No, we're blessed with good-sized pits there. So far, so good. I hope it's a problem someday. I hope they have to park in Marion. I'll do the shuttle. I'll get Bill's limo.
There you go.
Yeah, and we'll bring him on in.
Boy, that woke him up. Look at us. Oh, yeah, we can do that. We can take him 6 at a time. It
There,
won't take
yeah.
more than 3 days.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here. Good luck with what you're doing, and hope more people stop up and see any people in here. If you haven't seen a good race up at Gas City, go up. It's not that far.
Well, thank you for having me on. Just go to GasCityI69Speedway.com. It's got a lot of good information there for you.
Thanks for being here. Jerry Gappens. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Remember I said next week my first scheduled guest is the Viking, IMS Radio Network racing analyst Anders Krohn will be a great guy. He is. And if you've been listening to him, the broadcast, he's great. He's really good. And I got somebody else in mind to get here, so we'll be here next week. Until then, thanks for everybody being here. First night it hasn't rained in, 6 months or something. People stayed home and cut their grass and all that kind of thing. But thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Until next week, good night.
Thank you.